Welcome, everyone. Welcome to today's session. We appreciate your time, and we want to take advantage of this time with Alma, so we'll start right now. Just a new invitation for everyone to please visit our website where we have our events. And next one, please. Next slide, Viviana, please. Thank you. And also the job board, we mentioned this last week, but hopefully you've had the time to check it out. If not, please do so today. It is important to get your profile ready or your resume uploaded, so it's ready for all the opportunities that we are showcasing at this stage. Next one, please. A reminder to please keep your mics muted. We will take your questions through the chat. Today's topic is getting the job, and we have the amazing Alma Arzate as a host. Thank you, Alma. I'll tell you a bit about her. Alma Arzate is a global supply chain and operations leader with over 2 decades of global experience in the automotive, electronics, medical devices, CPG, and pharma industries. Alma is currently a senior director, global supply chain logistics at Apotex Inc., where she leads a diverse team of over 150 supply professionals. Alma has been recognized by many organizations. In 2019, she was selected by Supply Chain Canada as part of their top 100 most influential women in Canadian supply chain. In 2021, Alma was recognized as one of the top 100 women in supply chain by IBM. In 2022, Alma became the first female content creator and instructor for LinkedIn Learning's Spanish library in the topics of supply chain and logistics. And to the end of the year, she was nominated as part of the top 10 most influential Hispanic Canadians. In 2023, Alma was recognized as one of the 100 most influential women in supply chain by B2G Consulting. Originally from Juarez, Mexico, Alma relocated with her family to Canada in 2007. She resides in the GTA with her husband of over 25 years and their 3 children ages 15, 18, and 24. And this is her LinkedIn profile. You can please connect with her, and over to you, Alma. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you guys. Thank you for being here and giving us your Tuesday night. Hopefully we can make this a pleasant time. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing my screen. That will be hurdle number 1. Let's see if we can overcome this hurdle. And let me know you can see my screen. Can you guys see my screen? Is it clearly?
Now we do. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, babe. It was probably a little bit of a lag. So first of all, I would like to thank the Hispanotech team for this invitation. So really appreciate it. So congratulations to all of you because you made it. This is your 7th and last webinar on the series that the mentees of this cohort has been going through since the month of August. So it's really my pleasure to be here today. And I have a confession to make before we start the presentation. So the topic that Hispanotech gave me was getting the job. And then I added the keeping it part because it's not enough to just land the job. In the very competitive Canadian workplace, it's very important that we all demonstrate the right skills and the right abilities, not just to be able to survive the job, but actually thrive in it. Okay, so I was a little bit of a rebel and added more than Citlali and Carlos wanted. So sorry about that. So agenda and topics of this presentation. And I want to, beyond the presentation, I would like to make it a conversation. So your participation is going to be extremely important. Okay, so I don't want to just be dumping content on you. I want you guys to also interact. Therefore, I've broken the presentation into 3 sections. So it's going to be a bit of a section on what to do post the interview, and what other tactics you can apply to get that job that you so want. And after you get the job offer, what you need to do next. Then we're gonna break for Q&A time. I'm gonna take 2 or 3 questions. I believe Citlali already instructed you to please put your questions on the chat as we're going through. Don't wait until the end. You come up with a question, please put it in. I'll take maybe a couple of questions, and then we're gonna go into negotiating and finalizing the deal. More Q&A time, and then the part of so this is the part of keeping the job, right? So integrating to the new workplace and what to do when you finally get the job, and then we're gonna close with more Q&A time. Okay, so there will be plenty of opportunities for you to ask your questions. So please, you have a question, just put it on the chat box. So without further ado, post-interview and additional tactics to get the job. What to do after the interview? Yes, it's very necessary to send thank you notes. It is customary here in Canada. I get thank you notes pretty much all the time. It strikes as a good impression. It's a good impression. What else can you do after you had your interview? I know it's hard because sometimes we can be our own worst critics, but do evaluate any mistakes you think you made, and perhaps write them down when it's fresh in your mind, right? So you can improve next time. There might be a second interview. There might be follow-up questions, so start to mentally prepare for that. Now, good time to start thinking, especially if the interview went well. You need to start thinking about what kind of salary, what kind of benefits you would like to see on an offer you are to receive one. Letting references know, this is important because sometimes I gotten calls of people that put me down as a reference and I had no idea that I was going to be called, right? So I had to think on my feet and provide the reference, but it's probably well appreciated when you reach out. So in case you do get an offer, your references will be lined up and ready. And then what I always say is, do not put all of your eggs in one basket. Despite how well the interview went and how you perceived it, do not let that stop you from applying to other roles. And we all know that as employers, we know that you're going to be applying to other roles. So please don't uh, let your guard down and continue to apply. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. So how do you send a follow-up email after your interview, right? We talk about it is very customary. If you have any questions, something wasn't clear, those thank you notes, you can also squeeze in a question or two there. And it's important that to make, the writing of this thank you notes a little easier, please do take notes, right? So you can send personalized notes to each person that you talk to, or you can send a single note to HR and ask to be forwarded. All of it is perfectly fine. No problem. Now, what is the right time to send a follow-up email? If you have an interview, your interview ended up at 3 p.m., do not send the thank you or follow-up email at 3:10 p.m. Okay, that's not really needed. So let the dust settle a little bit. You can send them the next day. It's fine. I'm probably busy, I might not even read it. So next day in the morning is perfectly fine. Okay. So tone of voice, just be professional, because don't be, this is not the time for jokes. So just keep it very professional. And I put a list here on what to include on the follow-up email, just to make sure that you're on top of it. There's really, you can read it later if you want. I'm sure you'll get a copy of the presentation. Okay. Some more post-interview tips that I wanted to give you, right? This is very important because, again, as I was saying, we cannot be our worst critics, right? So regardless of how it went, try to be kind to yourself, because you might be already feeling very emotional, right? So you need to be mindful of your emotions, right? And try not to beat yourself up too hard. I know it's easier said than done, right? But you made mistakes and you were not feeling very prepared, so it is what it is. The interview is done. There's nothing you can do, only other than to learn from that experience, right? So if it was a very challenging interview, just kind of reward yourself, take care of yourself mentally, emotionally. Maybe you want to have a walk around the block, go to the park, go to the movies. Just try to get your head, in a better place. Stay positive. I know when we're going through an interview process, we're very anxious, and it's going to be very important. One of the most important interviews in my life was when I was interviewing for a job here in Canada with the same company. I was with Johnson & Johnson in Mexico, medical devices. I had an interview here in Canada. Actually, they flew me to Montreal for an interview. So you can say that was the most important interview of my life. But I try to stay positive and say, you know what, if this is the job for me, things are gonna line up, and I just need to be myself. I cannot act if I'm like so stressed about it. And those were difficult moments, but at the end, I got the job. Obviously, I'm here, but it was really very stressful, right? So try to stay positive, and keep your spirits up, and try to be optimistic. Okay. Reflecting, besides, it's good to stay optimistic, but also you need to be honest with yourself, right? So like if you didn't do as well as you did, try to think about that. But also, this might be a good time to reflect on the actual job, because as I always say, job interviews are two-way streets. You need to have a conversation with your employer, potential employer, learn more about the position, but consider what you have learned so far about the company, your potential manager, and start evaluating honestly if this is the right job for you. Okay. Being patient. So I have had companies that took honestly weeks. I even forgot, like put it in the back of my mind. I said probably they already hired someone else. This was when I was moving from General Motors to J&J back in Mexico, and I was like, they probably forgot about me. They didn't forget about me. The position was put on hold for a month because of financial, like, nothing to do with me and potentially nothing to do with you, but they were having to kind of reorg the department. But once they finished the reorg, they called me back, and I ended up getting the job, but they called me back maybe a month and a half later. So don't consider it a failure if you don't hear back immediately. Okay. And then the last one, having a growth mindset. So regardless of the outcome of the interview, if you did well, didn't do well, you gain something from going through the process. And that's something that I had someone that I met at a networking event. She was from a recent arrival, a Canadian immigrant. And they did an event at Apotex. I work at Apotex Pharmaceuticals. So they did an event, and it was a very nice event. It was women in leadership, so they got like a bunch of us to be like do kind of a speed interviewing of these individuals that were new to the country. She had been in the country for like 3 weeks, and she was already at a networking event. So I'm like, kudos to you, you're already there. But she didn't have a lot of experience interviewing here in Canada. So I had an opening, and I asked my the person that reported to me, the manager. I said, would you mind giving so and so an opportunity to interview? I'm not going to ask you to hire her, because that's your decision, not mine. But can you at least give her the practice, of that interview, like a real life interview? And guess what happened? Yes, they interview her, they love her, and now they were like asking me, like, no, fighting is like, no, that's the person we want to hire. So she was definitely a success story. But there's regardless of the outcome, you gain something from that experience of interviewing. So you went through your Hispanotech webinars on self-discovery. You did your goal setting. You did your brand and digital presence. You did your job search and preparation webinar. and job application and interview, and you were so prepared for your interview that you dazzled the interviewers and the hiring manager, and you got the job. So congratulations for getting the job. So what to do next, right? So it's basically a very simple process. It's a two-step process. So you analyze the offer, and either you like the offer and take it, or you prepare for the negotiation. That's it. That's all you need to do. Analyze the offer. You love the offer. It's a great offer. It's a fair offer. Meets all your expectations. Sign on the dotted line. Or here we go. We're going to prepare for the negotiation. What to analyze on the job offer? The job offer consists on many things. People, when you think about job offer, people immediately think salary. And I'm not saying that's not the most important part. Of course, it's very important, but it's more than the salary, right? So you have to consider the benefits, you have to consider the perks, and you have to consider what we call total compensation. Total compensation, not just the salary portion of it, but the total compensation. So let's start with the salary, because that's basically in everyone's minds. So if you have opposing offers, and that has happened before, I have had candidates that tell me, Alma, like I know I'm going through another interview process, which I appreciate, because it kind of fuels me to even step on it even faster, and put more of an emphasis on this process, because I know there's might be a competitive offer coming. So you have a competitive offer. One offer might be offering you a lower base salary, but a higher chance at earning a bigger bonus. So you need to make those calculations and compare in case you have a competitive offer. If you only have one offer, you need to do some research in the market rate for the position that you're basically considering. And location is important, because it's not the same when you're going to be living in a metropolitan area, that there's a bit of a higher salary, than a suburban space, due to the cost of living. So commuting costs, setting up home office, those are investments that you need to make. If you were used to have a job where public transportation was easily available, then now you're going to be working in a more remote location when there's not good infrastructure there. So you might need to actually purchase a car, and with a car comes gas. With a car comes insurance. So you need to really take note of, am I going to be able to thrive with this particular salary, considering all the costs involved? Okay. So what else do we need to analyze? The benefits. The benefits are very important, so definitely we need to examine those. They will be included in the official offer package, but if you have any questions on the benefits, please, by all means, ask. There's nothing wrong with asking, okay? The culture is it's hard to pin down the culture, but not impossible. By the time you get an offer, potentially you met with multiple people in the company. And what I do once I've gone through in an interview process, I tend to talk to I tend to talk to pretty much everyone. So like the receptionist, I'm like, how do you like the company? Do you like working here? So I do a little bit of a chit chat with whomever I'm talking. And when my time comes to ask questions, I do tend to ask the question, for the people I'm meeting. And I observe too how they treat each other, how they refer to each other, how they're treating me, right? If they're already not I feel that they're being too harsh, they're being rude, they're being like, is that really the culture I want to join, right? So that's something to keep in mind. So we have gone through the first section of this presentation, right? So I'm going to open it up for Q&A. So ask any questions you want.
We don't have any questions yet on the chat. Please don't be shy. I'm sure you have questions for Alma. Send them over. She's ready for you.
I'm ready for the questions. What's happening with the mentor and mentees.
Alma, buenas tardes.
Hola.
Alma, ¿me escuchas? Buenas tardes.
Yes, I can. I can hear you.
Gracias, gracias, gracias. Alma, una pregunta. En que si yo tengo close work, pero quiero aplicar a ofertas de trabajo, yo tengo que decirles a ellos de entrada que tengo close work permit o simplemente puedo participar del proceso y en algún momento cuando ellos me pregunten decirles.
No,
Sorry,
let's
John.
translate the question maybe for the rest of the participants. Itlali, do you want to
Yes,
do that, or do you
please.
want
John is asking if he has to disclose his working conditions or if he is under a work permit before, and or at what stage should he disclose that information?
Exactly. So the answer to that, John, is going to be before you even start the interview process, the first question out of the interviewer's mouth is, are you legally authorized to work in Canada? That's going to be the first questions they're going to ask you. So if you withhold that information, you're going to be entering into a process where, trust might be lost if you disclose that too late in the process. So I'll be totally upfront. That's a great question. Totally upfront right from the get-go, and if you're going to need the company to sponsor you on a different permit or so, like, put it on the table right away. I wouldn't wait for that. Okay. But thank you. That's a great question.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay. Any other questions so far, Citlali?
No, we don't have any questions on the chat.
Okay. I'm hoping I'm not getting the shy group. Okay. More. Okay. So let's go to more content. Maybe this is going to prompt more questions. I'm hoping so. All right. Did such a good job that everything is crystal clear. I'm sure there are going to be more questions. Okay, so this is it when we start negotiating, right? And finalizing the deal. And this is honestly, guys, so hard. And I know so hard. It's so hard because and I'm gonna pause here because there's many of a study that says we as women have the hardest time with negotiation. And you know what? Like, I completely empathize with that. But we need to overcome those barriers and ask for what we believe we're worth. And if we don't do that, then the company is not going to appreciate our worth. And here in Canada, we'll get into the details of what that means. Okay. So what happens if your offer doesn't meet the expectations? First of all, don't panic. Okay. So I have to assure you that in Canada it's very normal to negotiate your offer. There's nothing wrong with it. And we're not going to look at you differently. And we're not going to be, challenging you or anything like that. Like, it's normal, like the first offer I try to give. Personally, I like to give my first offer should be a very strong offer. But maybe like other companies, other hire managers might have different strategies, like lowballing the candidate. I don't like that. Personally, I'm against it. I want to pay a fair salary and a fair benefits package for what the person is bringing to my team. But again, like, that's me, but you might find other employers applying different tactics. Okay. So in the perfect world, they will employers will offer you more than you want to get, right? But realistically, we might need to enter into negotiations. Now, what happens with many people, and I see it, many people accept a job offer. The first job offer they get, they're too anxious, they don't want to negotiate, they feel uncomfortable, and they're like, this is a good offer, like, I'm just gonna get in, and then hopefully they're gonna see how hard I'm working, and then I'm gonna be, recognized and promoted. The problem with that is you're already, if you didn't negotiate, you might be actually leaving some money on the table and some perks on the table. So people might be fearful. People might be like, well, they're going to rescind the offer. I can assure you, I have never had to rescind an offer because the candidate negotiated. I have never done that. I have never seen anything like that. So usually, like unless it's a completely unreasonable, and we're going to talk about reasonable and unreasonable, counter offers. But if it's a reasonable counter offer, like I have never had to rescind an offer for that and never seen it happen. So don't worry about it. Like do it. Once you receive an offer, the good news is you're in a position with a lot of power. Why? Because the company extended you an offer because they want to hire you. They want you to come and work for them. It's a lot of work for a recruiter to find a qualified, higher worthy candidate. So we as employers were incentivized to work with you to get you to sign on that dotted line. So take the opportunity and negotiate your terms and decide what perks are very important to you. Before you get into the negotiation, you need to know how much you're worth in the current market. And how are you going to get that? Like, of course, we all want the highest salary possible, but we need to be realistic on how much other people with similar skills, similar experience levels are making before we put our offer or counter offer on the table. So use valid data. The good news is lots of salary data. I share my salary data on several surveys, supply chain surveys that are put out there. And I do it every year. And the reason I do it is twofold. Number one, I want other supply chain professionals to see, get like a real life idea on how much people are making, because the more we share, the least the companies have the opportunity to, again, lowball us, the community, right? So it's good for us to share. And the second the reason why I do it is I get a copy of the salary report, so I'm able to check how am I doing versus my peer group. So you can look at similar jobs online. You can go to Indeed, you Glassdoor, or salary surveys for project management, supply chain, etc. Now you have friends or close acquaintances. You can discuss it with them. Like they might actually give you a bit of a range. They might not actually tell you how much they're making, but they might be like, a decent salary in this role would be like between whatever 90 and 110. So that gives you kind of a ballpark idea. So the more real information, so information is power, right? So the more real information you can get, the stronger your negotiation platform will be, because if you're gathering feedback that is like a range, and then you go totally outside of if you don't get that information and then you go totally outside of the range, we're going to be like, forget it. These candidates' expectations are so unrealistic that we will never be able to meet it. So no, I mean, we cannot proceed, right? So like you want to make sure that your counter is somewhat realistic, anchoring reality. So what about external factors? So companies don't have limitless financial, sorry?
Why you can, otra persona, why you can go onto
I think there's
the
someone like,
podría
there might be like a conversation happening because I hear some noise.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's
But
fine. That's fine.
give me a second, because I think we can pause just a little bit, because you were right. This topic raised a lot more questions. And I think before we go moving further, there's some questions aligned with when is it a good time to negotiate, how to approach that conversation. Is it a conversation? Is it by email? If I moved up the ladder in a new position, but I didn't negotiate, when can I do that? Do I still do that?
Okay, that's like, Citlali, you're giving me too many questions at once.
But yeah.
Let's do like one at a time. What about that?
Okay. If we let's do that. At what point you say you want to negotiate? Is it a formal meeting or through email?
No, you can do it through email. There's no problem. I have gotten very good, solid emails saying, you know what, thank you for the offer. I'm very grateful. I really want to I'm looking forward to join your team. I've been doing a bit of research, and I think on salary that is more aligned with my expectations will be X instead of Y. So absolutely, you can bridge the subject via email. I have had other candidates that actually have called a recruiter and had the conversation. It's okay either way. I don't, to be honest, like I don't have a preference. Like it's just like you need to speak up and use your voice to say that after you have the time to analyze the offer, you're unable to accept it at that time. Not to say that like closing the door is like at this time, I'm not able to accept it because A, B, and C. Is there room for opportunity to revisit the salary that has been offered?
Cool. So I think we can get into this one. If I got a new position but didn't get the opportunity to negotiate, when is it a good time to do it?
Sorry, like the question is if
I think because you moved positions within the same company, right? I think
yeah, and you didn't negotiate at the time and you accepted an offer that was not.
That's what I'm assuming. If you can elaborate, Alejandro, on your question. Because
yes, Alejandro, maybe give us a bit more details on what you were thinking.
And then Emmanuel asked one good one too. How further can we go or push the company during that negotiation process?
Boys, it's so like let me take the last one first. So remember that we need to do our homework, right? And I was kind of in the middle of explaining, the homework that we have to do to make sure that our counter is in the realm of possibilities. Okay, so if let's say the salary and that's something that I do too, some companies do disclose. I always ask, what is the target compensation range for this position? I never ask about a particular figure. I ask for a range. And if they tell me, Alma, this role is paying, example, like this is not a true example, but from 100 to 120. And I will be making, as an example, 140, right? I'll be like, there's no way we can bridge, right? So like the company might actually give you the range if you ask for it, but it's incredible the amount of people that don't ask for it. They don't ask for it. They go through the whole process, and at the end, they're like expecting 150, and the maximum the company can give is 120. So that's definitely a recipe for disappointment at the end. So do we go back to the second question, Citlali, and ask for more clarification?
Yeah, Alejandro just confirmed it's within the same company. They moved up, but or a different position, but they didn't.
And they
negotiate.
kind of failed to negotiate.
They didn't. They
didn't negotiate. Okay, so you know what the right time is to renegotiate, reopen it. Maybe it's just me, but I would probably wait for something like a project that you did extremely well, a presentation that you did extremely well, a congratulatory message that your boss's boss gave you. I think those like good feelings of you're on track, you're exceeding expectations, and you're tracking well, and you're at par with potentially the next level. Seize the moment, Alejandro, seize the opportunity and have a sit down with your boss and say, you know what, I moved to this position 6 months ago. I think I've been tracking extremely well. As you can see, I got a recognition from the CFO. And I'm thinking that, I might be already performing at the next level. Would you agree? And can we potentially revisit my compensation? Okay. So I would take probably but again, that's just me. I would take probably like a good event that happened and kind of turn it into, this is kind of the value, demonstrating the value that I'm adding to the company. Okay.
Okay, we have at least 4 more, but I think you can cover this.
And then this is the topic. This is the hot topic.
I know.
I love it. Okay, I have a few more slides on this, but let me advance a little more, to see if that answers some of the questions.
Yes. Perfect.
But if doesn't, stop me and we'll have more debrief. I love it. Okay, I'm glad I didn't get the shy group. Yay. So thank you for that. Okay, So on the external factors, just going back to external factors, if the company is publicly traded, you can look at their financial performance. All this information is online. You can look at the executive, movements that have happened on LinkedIn, and that there might be an objection. Like if the company is not like in solid financial grounds, there might be a bit of an objection, but you can actually say, you know what, I bring in the skills to support the company so the company continues to do well, et cetera, et cetera. So you can counter with that. So now what about your own financial needs? So this is something that you also need to analyze, right? Like, are you moving to a new city to take up the job? How is the cost of living comparing? So you need to develop a salary range. And again, I want to encourage you guys to think of a range. I don't want you to have a number fixing your minds. So think of a range to bring to that proverbial negotiating table. 3 figures. How much you need to live on? That's the bottom end of the range. Like how much you will need to feel satisfied. That's the midpoint. And how much would you need to feel delighted? Thrilled that you got that job. So the last 2 figures is basically the salary range for which you should aim. Example: you need 40,000 to live on. You will feel satisfied with 70,000, and then you feel delighted with 90,000. So you need to start at the high end of that to allow room for negotiation. So you go back to the table and said, you know what, I think I will be very much satisfied if we can meet a salary of 90,000. And then the company can go back and say, you know what, Alejandro, the best I can do for you is 85,000. Close enough. You know what I mean? So, but you need to know that. And that, again, knowledge is power. So you need to really do some financial planning, which, to be fair, I know in our home countries, we do very little financial planning. Like 16 years in Canada have taught me that, financial planning is very important. But you need to really sit down and understand these numbers. Okay? So benefits package. This is so critical, and sometimes it's kind of overlooked because, again, we're all fixated on the salary. How much am I making, right? But what about the benefits, right? Like the benefits, for example, I put money in my budget to pay for certifications. So like APIC CPIM, PMP from PMI. I have budget to pay for these certifications, so it costs the employees zero, right? Perfectly fine to ask the question, oh, Alma, I'm going through my PMP, and you know what, I need to take another course every Sunday, and sorry, Saturday, and I'm willing to invest my time. Would the company support me with the cost of that certification and the exam? Absolutely, yes. That will be my answer, right? Any growth potential, I always ask, like some of the interviewees ask me, Alma, is this role vacant? What happened to the incumbent? And sometimes my incumbent has been promoted. So that actually is a positive news for the interview, like you guys as interviewees, because it shows that you have growth potential. It shows that coming into this role, you're going to be considered for other future roles that will have a potential for a promotion, right? Part of the benefits package, the short-term incentives, the long-term incentives, the insurance, like you said, like I'm going to be able to work hybrid, remote. Am I going to get a company car? Am I going to get a mobile phone, etc.? So all these are part of the benefits package. Now, some of these benefits can also be negotiated, and that's very important. It's just not the salary. Remember, it's salary, benefits, etc., right? So what else can be negotiated? You can definitely negotiate a hiring bonus. And that's something that, like I have people move from another country. I'm establishing myself. I need money to whatever, do the rental, move to a new home. Is it possible to provide me with a hiring bonus? Okay. So that's something that is negotiable. Start that is negotiable. I have waited for someone to join my team about 6 weeks. Usually it's a couple of weeks, right? But that person was like, Alma, like I'm in the middle of an SAP implementation. I feel bad about leaving my company hanging. They're counting on me and we're so close to the go live. I would really like to see this project through. You know what? Do it. Do it. Don't close any doors. Leave with your head high. Leave with good feelings. And join the company satisfied that you did the best for your prior company. That actually shows me that you're very loyal and committed, and that you will do the same for me if you were in my team. So I take it as a positive, to be honest. Okay, so if you're a candidate worth waiting for, companies are going to wait for you. Okay, I mean, not 6 months, but something more reasonable. Long-term incentives. Some individuals at some levels already have acquired and accrued long-term incentives. So it's definitely possible to say, you know what, I'm walking away from X amount of money that I have already accrued. Is it possible that you can compensate me either with hiring bonus and then first year anniversary, second year anniversary bonuses, because I'm walking away from this much money if I was to stay in my current company? Title is sometimes it matters to people. And we have been happy to accommodate. Some people don't like to be called consultants. Some people like to be called specialists or senior specialists or there's some limitations there, but most definitely that's something that can be negotiated. Now, I think this is something that is related potentially to a bit of Alejandro's question, which was, when would my performance be assessed next? And what happened here, guys, is that we basically have a performance cycle, a yearly performance cycle. So what happens is, during the performance cycle, you might get to the end of the performance cycle, beginning of the new performance cycle. So there might be a whole year before your performance is assessed. So you can put in a clause that your performance and your salary will be assessed within the next 6 months. So therefore, like bypassing that performance cycle and not having to wait as long. Work threshold, I have people that have to drop off the kids, they come a little later. I have people that are live very far away and they want to come to work before the crazy peak hour starts. So work schedule can absolutely be negotiated, relocation, and more. All this I'm going to say, you have to be professional during the negotiation. You have to be respectful, be strong but fair. And when you accept the offer, you need to wait until the new company clears you for hire. Usually happens after completing your background and reference checks, and then you resign. Do not resign before the new company clears you for hire. That's a big no-no, because you might end up getting snagged by the background check. Let's say that your university back home is not getting back to the new employer. They have to move on. They might rescind the offer. And then you actually end up with no job out of the two. It has happened and it's very very stressful for an individual. Okay. Resigning, I left some material here and I'm going to go through it, but basically how to resigning in person, make sure you're firm and final, very professional, convenient time, meet with your manager, explain the reasons, hand your resignation letter, and do continue to give 100% of during the transition period, okay? Resignation letter, I also put here a little bit of information on what to include. And I'm just going to highlight, do not use the resignation letter to explain your reasons for finding a new position. This is a conversation that is much better to do on a face-to-face meeting, because you never know if you're going to need your manager to actually provide a reference or anything like that. So please don't burn any bridges when you're resigning. Careful with the counter offers. They're not going to be, they might be good at the beginning, but they might not work out at the end. There were reasons why you were actually trying to resign, being undervalued, not a good fit in the culture, having some trust issues with your management. So that is not going to change if you accept the counter offer. Okay. So that's kind of in a nutshell, the negotiation strategies and what can you negotiate. Basically everything is up for negotiation.
Thank you, Alma. I have a question about the benefits for insurance. It's important to negotiate or talk about the insurance company who will cover the healthcare benefits, or only accept the company elected by the company?
Well, to be honest, like the company has one company that usually that takes care of the benefits. You really want to know the coverage. So for example, Apotex noticed, mental health was a big ask, by all the employees. So they amp up. Now we have an annual limit of $10,000 per person in the family for mental health support, seeing social workers or etc. So it's just like trying to help with the, a bit of the stress levels or so. So there's standard benefits and there might be some additional benefits, but if you want to know about it, I will ask for a copy of the benefits.
Thank you. If the salary offer is low, should I ask for a specific amount, or just ask if they can improve their offer?
That's a good point. I have seen it done both ways, but you know what the challenge is of asking the company to give you a new offer? You might still not be satisfied. And the company doesn't have infinite time to go back and forth 5 times. So it's better, as I already pointed out, for you to do your homework, understand that range, the lower end and the high end of the range, and you propose a number, let the company come back and tell you, this is the best I can do. And outside, usually it's kind of aligned, maybe not exactly what you asked for, maybe a bit lower than what you asked for, but you will be much satisfied that if they offer you 3% more, you won't be satisfied. So I would say take control of that process and you tell them what you think you're worth.
And just a comment here that says you could negotiate the offer to include salary increases based on goals. For example, 15,000 increase when you get your PN designation. That's a tip from Carlos.
You could. I haven't seen it, in many years, but I guess you could. It could be potentially negotiated, or you can negotiate that the company will cover the cost of your training. That absolutely I have seen. So for sure.
Is it possible to negotiate holiday time before the first year concludes?
Absolutely. There's have been people that have negotiated. Let's say you start with X number of weeks of vacation. Some people have actually negotiated an extra week of vacation. No problem.
Fariba asked, what's a good way of negotiating? Can you please give an example? And I think you've covered this.
Yeah, I think we already covered. So I'm going to move to the next section just Perfect. In the interest of time, because we started like 8 minutes late. Okay. So I have a clock next to me. So I'm sorry if we're running a few minutes late, but just to cover some of the content, right? So this is
sorry. I do have to ask this question before you move to the next one, because I think it's very important to understand. Sure. It's legal here in Canada to have no benefits such as vacations, dental, or vision.
I'm not a lawyer, so I won't say. I can only have my experiences working at 2 companies in Canada, and I have never seen like no benefits being offered. So I will consult with a lawyer, a labor lawyer. I'm not qualified to say yes or no.
Thank you. Please continue.
Okay, so now you got the job and you got your resignation done and you left the company in good terms. You didn't burn any bridges. Guess what? Now you need to integrate yourself into the new workplace. There's many expectations from Canadian employers, and some of you might already have a Canadian job. Some of you might not have had a Canadian job before. I will say, to be honest, like I don't feel like my experience with employers in Mexico was like super different. They still expect you to communicate, to collaborate, to innovate, to self-develop. So but those are just in general some expectations. I cannot speak about every culture that is represented tonight, but I can tell you one thing. The Canadian culture is hyper focused on time, which I know for some of our cultures can be a challenge. For some cultures, that time might be a fluid concept. This is a very rigid concept. Okay, if you say you're gonna do something by this date, people actually take you up on your word and expect you to be done by that date, unless you communicate that you're delayed and it's not going to be done until the following Monday. And then most times they're fine with it if you proactively communicated and didn't wait until that day to let them know that you were not done. Okay, so but that's the time component, and then the other component is the results. The drive for results is, I would say, extremely high, and they ask you to make sure that you achieve those results in a positive way, in an inclusive way. And that's something that can, as part of the company, set you apart. Okay. So there's many skills here to demonstrate on the job. I'm not going to get through them. It's there for you, for you to read later. So definitely the key ones I think I highlighted on the side. So how did I integrate into the Canadian workplace back in 2007? So I had multiple challenges. I cannot tell you how many times I felt that I was struggling, connecting. I was struggling integrating, but this is what happened. And at a high level, I felt that I had a lack of understanding about the Canadian culture. And what I did to overcome that challenge, I was very observant. I was watching my peers. I was watching my managers. Something that I already mentioned. I'm from Juarez, Mexico. So I work with a lot of American companies. Time is money. We have an agenda. The meeting is at 2. At 2 p.m., we start getting right into business, down to business until whatever, 2:30 p.m. Here, not so much. We start the meeting. We had to do a bit of small talk. You're going to hear a lot about that, and probably you already heard it from the other webinar speakers. And that really, took me aback. It's like, what are they talking about? This hockey game and this movie and this series and this vacation. Is like, we have work to do. What's happening here? But sooner rather than later, I had to take the cues, as I was talking about, and I embraced the small talk. I decided to share a little bit more about me, be more open about who I was, establish better relationships with my peers, and connect with them at a personal level. And that had really helped me over the years. So another challenge I had, and this was a big one, I didn't have I didn't have a good way to express my ideas, especially to management. Some of our cultures are considered to be very verbose. We like to write long emails, almost like a novel, and it's a presentation with like lots of content. It's very hard. So the executives don't have the time. They want you to get to the point, and you need to do more of executive summary. So what I did in order to better applied those concepts is I listen to audiobooks. I still listen to audiobooks to this day, on my way from home to work, on my way to work from home and work to home. And I listen to all kinds of audiobooks, autobiographies, fiction, business, you name it. Like if it catches my attention, I'm going to listen to the audiobook. And it helps me with additional words and additional vocabulary that is so important, the structure of my sentences. And then I also observe how other people were doing, how other people were succeeding and presenting their ideas and summarize. So I didn't feel necessarily threatened by them. I felt that I could learn from them. Basically, management didn't know me. They didn't know who I was. They didn't know what I was capable off, and my way to overcome the challenge is, they were coming to me and saying, Alma, we want you to tackle this. Yes, Alma, we want you to tackle that. And it's like, I had I had a project where I know that 4 PMs had failed before. And so high risk, high visibility. And it's like, Alma, we want you to come back early from Adlib to tackle this project. And I told my husband, you know what? Back in Mexico, as you may or may not know, you only have like 42, 43 days before the baby, after the baby. At that time, I had already had maybe 3 months. So I was like, I already have double the time, so why not? So like I came back a bit early. I was coming in 3 days a week to the office for several months. And I was able to get that project off the ground. So that helped me get noticed by management, and then, other doors open up. Gaining the support of my coworkers was also hard. So especially my peer group, I think I was okay with like the management and my direct reports, but not necessarily my peer group. And do not overestimate the power of your peer group, right? So make an effort, get to know them, offer your help when you have nothing to gain. That's the time to offer your help. Build the strong relationships, and they will definitely pay off. When you need the help, they will go out of their way to help you. And then the last challenge that I have is in Mexico, you never challenge your boss in front of them, like it's in front of a group. And I was more like, okay, this is what my boss wants. I'm going to do what my boss wants. And yeah, so what I found here is that this is a much more democratic and inclusive workplace. I appreciate when my distribution technician on the floor challenges me, and I take joy of that because, they feel comfortable putting up an objection, a challenge, putting it on the table. And they trust me enough that they know there are going to be no repercussions for them doing that, so we expect all the employees to be proactive, to be engaged, and to really speak their minds, which was a challenge again in my early days. Stay marketable, right? Your the time to build a network is when you don't need a network, and probably you already listened to that during the networking part of it. So I'm passionate about networking, but I'm going to touch the subject because you guys already went through a whole webinar on networking, which I would love to attend because, I'm always out and about in the networking world. But stay marketable, right? Keep your skills fresh, keep your skill current, keep yourself relevant. Expand your learning. I have acquired a series of certifications in my life. Not so important anymore, but at that time they were important. They had a purpose. So I did that. Make sure your resume is up to speed, up to date. You never know when you're gonna need it. Be flexible. There's an open market. It's evolving. If you wanna explore something else, some other career, absolutely stay flexible. Network of contacts is very important to cultivate. And stay informed, keep up to date. I follow people on my LinkedIn profile that come from all walks of life, and that helps me remain current. My kids also keep me current with all the lingo that they're using these days, right? So that's also very critical to me. And that's basically it, Citlali. So we made it on time, and I'm open to any other questions you guys might have.
Yes, thank you, Alma. There's been some back and forth with the benefits conversation in the chat.
Go ahead.
I just want to touch a bit again. I think we can go back to the negotiation piece.
Sure.
Fariba asks, regarding the 1-week vacation extension negotiation, what is the professional way of saying that?
The professional way of saying that is, I appreciate the offer, and if you were satisfied with the other points, and let's say the only point of contention was the vacation, I will say, I will be pleased, I will be glad to accept the offer, but I have a challenge. I'm from a different, I wouldn't mind throwing in a personal situation if that helps your case. I'm actually from a different country. So I actually, when I go, I need to take longer periods away. So it will really help me make up my mind. You can be flexible on the vacation. Also, you can use that I already had, let's say, 4 weeks vacation in my prior job. This coming in at 3 weeks, it's not going to work out for me. Is there any way you can match what I already had in the prior job, which will be 4 weeks? So you can basically use a different scenario to achieve what you want.
Okay. If you have a trip planned that is not for vacation, when should you notify about this situation?
I would say not during the first interview. Like I wouldn't start with that. Like that's my opening sentence. Like just by the way, I have a vacation. No, I wouldn't. That's not relevant. I would
Even
say
if it's
sorry.
Even if it's not for vacation?
No, it doesn't really matter for the
Okay.
reason. Like the Canadian employer never gonna ask you, oh, why are you going somewhere? Like I really like my team shares because they want to share where they're going and they want to share pictures and like I mean I'm okay with that. But I would never ask them where they're going. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna be off next, like in 3 months from now, whatever, right? Be off, like I'm trusting that you already have everything covered. But going back to the original question, I will wait probably more until I think it's perfectly fine to do it after the offer is presented. I think I will be perfectly fine with the candidate coming back and saying, please to accept the offer. Like the offer is, you were delighted with the offer. I'm hoping, the offer I put out there, so if the person is delighted and everything is good, and I will actually say, just so that you know, you're not asking for permission. You're letting them know, I would like to let you know that in this week I'm not gonna be in the country, so just please to account for that. You just courtesy notifying them that you're not gonna be there. That's it. It's not a point of negotiation. You're just letting them know that you're not gonna be there, and you know what? Everyone is gonna be fine with it.
Okay.
No problem.
I think we touched on, but can you just emphasize what is a reasonable time for starting date?
Okay, so I will be worried if if I'm given the offer, that person is accepting the offer on a Friday and say I can start on Monday, and that person is employed. That will be a red flag for me. I expect that person to give the other company the courtesy of at least 2 weeks. At least 2 weeks. That's customary. That's standard. Again, if that person says, you know what, Alma, like I want to come and work for you right away, but I'm going to need 3 weeks to make sure everything is taken care of, totally fine. Take your 3 weeks, close that part of your life, be ready to move on, right? So, but at the bare minimum, 2 weeks. I wouldn't be surprised for like if there's a 3 weeks ask.
Okay. A lot of the other comments or questions are regarding that benefits conversation. I think we can take this as a feedback and we can probably have someone expert on those topics.
Maybe consult an expert on benefits.
Bring someone that
like I mean, I feel very comfortable with many topics, but this one I might defer to the experts.
And I think we can touch on the first one that we had talked about before, or do you want to say something else?
Because I'm like whatever you want to do is fine.
I think that question was important to have your perspective.
I think it was, yeah.
How do you suggest a candidate stand out in the application and interview process, given the competitive nature of the job market today?
I love that question. I thought it was very insightful, and I'm going to tell you what makes a candidate shine. And I have hired, no kidding, I will say hundreds of people at this point. Let's say you have 2 candidates and they have similar skills, similar background, similar years of experience, similar education. So let's like that's equally, attractive, let's say. And you have a candidate that, at the end of the interview says, Alma, I just want to tell you that I'm very interested in this job. I would really love to work for Apotex, and I'm willing to do what it takes to be successful. So please do consider me for the job. I'll be the most grateful. And then you have another candidate, the equally qualified candidate that says, I ask any questions, any other comments before we close the interview? No questions. That's it. Thanks. And leaves. Who would you give the job to? The person that asked for the job and said that is committed and like to come to work for you, or the person that just left and didn't even have a question for you. The attitude, like honestly, the attitude comes across so strongly, you know, when you work, you know what I usually picture myself when I'm interviewing someone is like, can I work with that person? Can my managers work with that person? Can my team work with this person? I'm picturing this person in a series of multiple situations, and how the person is responding is informing me. It's like, they're gonna kill him out there. You know, no way that person is gonna survive. It's like, that's not the right character, the right personality, etc. Right? So I'm like, thank you very much for coming, etc., etc. But yes, so I think I'm sorry, I felt a little passionate about it because, you know, like, it's so important to ask for the job, and so like so many people fail to ask for the job. So please ask for the job. Although probably that was covered somewhere else, but I need to reinforce it.
Okay, we don't have more questions on the chat, and I think we are at time. I just want you to give us your closure tonight, and again, thank you for your time.
Yes, no, thank you. That's basically it. I had a bit of a quote, you know, in the parting words. I stopped sharing already, but I'll read it to you. This is from Susie Kasim, American writer, film director, and philosopher. And the quote says, doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will. And you know what? When you doubt yourself and you don't go for the job that you want, and you don't ask for what you think you're worth, you know, that fear, that doubt is going to kill your dream. So don't hold yourself back. You already have enough things that might be going against you. Don't join that party. You know, be your own cheerleader, be your own advocate, right? And I think having you guys here as part of this amazing program from Hispanotech, and kudos to Citlali, and kudos to Carlos, and kudos to Viviana and all the team members that put this program together. You are already 10 steps ahead of the curve. So use that to your competitive advantage, right? And that's basically all I have to say. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Alma. Thank you so much.